So tonight we take a look at the Hardened Skeptic. And there's plenty in this world, in this culture, to be skeptical about. Everyone seems to be selling something, right? They always have a cure or the next great thing or the big answer for something. I can't scroll through my social media feed or even open my email without seeing somebody telling me that they've found the next answer to my problems, right? That they have something that I need and it's going to solve everything. People tell me that I can quit my job today and earn over 6 figures tomorrow if I sign up for their free course, right? I've done that a few times. It doesn't work. Just kidding. I didn't do that. I can't look without people telling me that, you have a few unwanted pounds that you probably want to lose, and I've got the way to do that. In fact, it doesn't take any work at all. I can lose your unwanted pounds and gain desired muscle in 2 weeks if you follow my program. We fall for these things quite a bit. They're all over the place. Some of them may work. Some of them may have some merit, but a lot of times they don't. And over time, we get skeptical of these sorts of things. Maybe you just delete them, right? You just try to pass them by. Everyone's trying to get their hooks in you and encourage you and get you to believe that what they have is going to be good for you. Now, I grew up just across the river from Missouri, from St. Louis. And do you know what the unofficial slogan for Missouri is? Show me state. It's the show me state, right? I always thought that was fascinating. But when it comes to skepticism, that's kind of how we are, right? I don't believe you. I'm not going to trust your words. I need you to show me. Interestingly enough, this phrase, the show me state, was attributed. I did some homework this week. It's pretty good. This unofficial slogan is attributed to a congressman, Willard Duncan Vandiver, who served in the House of Representatives from 1897 to 1903. And it said that in a speech delivered at a naval banquet, this is what he stated. I come from a state that raises corn and cotton and cockleburrs and Democrats, and frothy eloquence neither convinces nor satisfies me. I'm from Missouri. You've got to show me. Right? He wouldn't be convinced by lofty and eloquent words. You need to show it to me. I need to see it. Which echoes the sentiment that St. Paul gives in his first letter to the Corinthians. Chapter 2, he writes this, "And I, when I came to you, brothers, did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified, so that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God." Words can be convincing, right? We're convinced by words. Words can also be deceiving. Is that true? Words can deceive us. Any classic movie fans out there? Do you like, and by classic, I mean classics to me. The Princess Bride. Anyone ever see The Princess Bride? Yeah? One of my favorite movies from the 80s. Well, you may recall this scene just after Wesley, who is our hero of the story, rescues Princess Buttercup, and they make it through the fire swamp, only to be apprehended by Prince Humperdinck and the Six-Fingered Man. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I think just those names alone, right, are enough for you to be like, what? I got to check out this movie. Humperdinck, Buttercup, Six-Fingered Man, what's going on? Well, so they make it through, and they're apprehended because Prince Humperdinck is after Buttercup. Long story there, right? Either way, the princess pleads for Wesley's life. She says, if you take me, will you promise that you'll spare him and send him back to his ship? And of course, the prince, wanting to gain the princess, says, of course, princess, anything you ask, right? So he whisks her away, and then the Six-Fingered Man comes to Wesley and says, "Come, sir, we've got to get you to your ship." And then Wesley says, "We are men of action. Lies do not become us." Men of action. Lies do not become us. What figure in our crucifixion story, in that sort of sense, being a man of action, saw more action than any other? Probably had to have been that centurion. Some of the Roman guards who were there. They had seen quite a bit of action in their day. And this Roman soldier, you already know about Roman soldiers and their military prestige and everything that went into that. Now, a centurion was a soldier among soldiers. This wasn't just your average run-of-the-mill soldier. The centurion was well respected. He had to have proven himself in battle, competent and capable not only to fight but also to lead. And here's what the historian Vegetius writes about a centurion. He says, the centurion in the infantry is chosen for his size, strength, and dexterity in throwing his missile weapons, and for his skill in the use of his sword and shield. In short, for his expertness in all the exercises. This is a dude you don't want to mess with. He is to be vigilant, temperate, active, and ready to execute the orders he receives rather than to talk. Strict in exercising and keeping up proper discipline among his soldiers, in obliging them to appear clean and well-dressed, and to have their weapons constantly rubbed and bright. He knew how to keep the ship shape. He knew how to keep things in order. Centurions also had to be literate. They had to have good connections. They had to be at least 30 years old and have that military experience, and had to be able to boost and keep their soldiers' morale. So all that to say, I'm assuming that this centurion didn't fall easily to lofty words or wisdom. He was probably a show me kind of guy. I'll believe it when I see it. I'm going to assume that this man of action, who had seen countless battles, led hundreds of men, and was able to command them and direct them, who had served probably under generals and emperors, would not fall victim to an infomercial, would not be swayed or convinced by this pathetic, beaten up human being hanging on a cross, that he was a king of any sorts, let alone the Son of God. What he saw on the cross was not a picture of the Son of God, but a simple, ordinary, weak human being. Even the inscription above Jesus' head, which read, "The King of the Jews," or the cries of anguish from Jesus' followers who were there, could convince this hardened soldier, this hardened skeptic, that Jesus was anything but an ordinary criminal. And by the way, it probably didn't matter to him. This was just another day on the job. But then something happens. Something literally happens to rattle him or to shake him to his core. We heard this read earlier. As Jesus was crucified, the earth shook and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Truly, surely, this was the Son of God. Simply that word, we have to assume that there was, of course, some question as to whether or not Jesus was who he said he was. After all, that's why Jesus was on trial. From one perspective, he was blaspheming, he was lying, he was trying to convince people that he was the Son of God, but some were not having it. We know that Jesus was the Son of God, and yet people did not believe him. That's the very reason he was on trial. Yet he, through his life, gave signs and words, and teachings, and worked miracles. He raised people from the dead. He gave sight to the blind. He did all these things and more, all to show that he truly was who he said he was. So we know a lot about Jesus. What we don't know is a lot about this centurion. We don't really know his name from the book of Matthew. We don't know much about him, other than what we read was that as a part of his duties, he was to keep watch over Jesus as he was crucified. More than likely, just to make sure everything went according to plan, so to speak, that no funny business was being done, that no one came and tried to rescue him, or no one tried to come and take him, or no one tried to come and inflict any more damage than had already been done. Just let things be. Business as usual. Now, we don't know if he was assigned to watch over Jesus from the beginning of his trial, so that perhaps he had heard and seen everything that had happened to Jesus. We don't know. We don't know if he was present when Jesus was scourged and whipped and beaten and mocked. We don't know if he was maybe one of the soldiers or the one who inflicted the wounds on Jesus as he was scourged. Interestingly, however, centurions did carry, I found this out, something called a vine stick. A vine stick, something that would demonstrate their position and their authority. And we know, and we heard read, that a reed is mentioned a couple times. One to mock Jesus as a scepter, one to hit him on the head, and another to lift up a sponge to Jesus' mouth. So, could this reed have been the very vine stick of this centurion? We don't know. Was the centurion there casting lots for Jesus' clothing and trying to win a quick buck? Was he there mocking Jesus at the foot of the cross, mocking this man who was about to breathe his last? We don't know. Now, there is a legend about a centurion named Longinus. It's found in the Apocrypha. If you've heard of the Apocrypha, it's a set of books that didn't quite make the Bible. And yet, the early fathers found those books helpful to some degree. And so we find his name in what's called the Gospel of Nicodemus. And Longinus is named. The legend says that Longinus was a blind Roman centurion who thrust the spear into Christ's side at the crucifixion. And some of the blood fell on Longinus' eyes, and he was healed. And upon this miracle, Longinus believed in Jesus. Now, that's a legend. We don't know. It is named. However, it's interesting. Because isn't skepticism a form of blindness? In fact, I think the readings or the writings in which this is taken from, the word for blind is kind of left to interpretation. It could mean literally blind. It could also just mean dim-witted. And when the truth is in your face, and when you're confronted with the truth and you don't believe it, aren't we dim-witted? Either way, whether all of those things are true or not about the centurion, there's one thing we know to be true. Whether he is literally blind or not, we know that his eyes are finally opened to the truth that's staring him in the face. He looks up. He sees Jesus. He feels the earthquake. He hears Jesus speak. And then he joins the ranks of Peter, one of Jesus' disciples who confessed, Jesus, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. The centurion confessed, truly, this was the Son of God. His mind, his heart, his skepticism has finally been answered, and he confesses the truth. But as convincing as his testimony is, think about this. He's still a bit skeptical. If we read his words literally, this was the Son of God. When he looks upon the dead, lifeless body he sees hanging on the cross, he says, this was, as if it is no longer the Son of God. Even Jesus' disciples and his friends, even though they had heard Jesus talk about what would happen to him after he would die, still did not believe that Jesus was telling the truth. They were all skeptical of the claims Jesus made that in 3 days he would rise again. So they probably all believed in the same way that, yes, this was the Son of God, but he is no longer. But we know that Jesus keeps his promises. That, yes, Jesus died, but then, yes, in 3 days, Jesus came back to life. And so the man that the centurion saw on the cross and confessed was and is and forever will be the Son of God, crucified for you, risen that we might live. The truth is, God can handle skepticism. Human beings have been skeptical of God from the beginning. God can handle doubt. We've doubted his words, but God has proved himself to be faithful and true from the beginning. And Peter reminds us of this in his first letter, verses 8 and 9. Though you have not seen him, though you have not seen Jesus with your own eyes, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls. In this season of Lent, especially in this season, but always, look to the cross and see it clearly. This is the Son of God, your very salvation. Amen.